Hello and welcome to this iMesh video. So I don't know if you know yet, but we released one of the most complex roof generators for Blender, and we spent many months working on it, and I was so deep into all the technical details that I forgot to mention where do you even start. So of course we've had lots of people messaging saying, where do I begin? Like, I've imported it, now what? So that's what this video is going to be about. If you don't know about this roof generator, then I recommend just watching this video because you might find it quite interesting and seeing how powerful this tool is. And of course, if you're watching this video, please do check out iMesh. We have released the new pricing, which is $17 per month, and you get full unlimited access. We wanted every designer, everyone interested in ArcViz to have the opportunity to try. So that's what you can do right now. So check out iMesh. We have released, like I said, all of these 30 new roof generators. And also we released 10 preset glass materials, and that's simply because glass is so common in all of ArcViz that it was taking me time, even myself, to have to keep recreating glass materials that work. So I created this node group that allows you to create quite complicated glass materials, and then from that I've created 10 presets on top of the 30 assets that we released on the month as well. So if you're part of iMesh and you're creating a scene and you just need quickly some frosted glass that is glossy or some matte frosted glass, then you simply click append and it's already done for you. So saving time all over the place. Right, so you've imported this roof generator. Where do we begin? Okay, so we have the iMesh Asset Manager, and if I go to the Geometry Nodes tab, you find the roof type that you like. I'm going to start with the tiles variation rather than the metal ones for now. And what I'm going to do is just append in this roof type. Let's click append, and then we get something like this. And the biggest question is, from this point, what do you do? So in a few cases, I've seen a few people taking this geometry and going to edit mode and trying to fit this to their own roof shape. However, that's probably going to be impossible. And in most cases, your roof is going to be a different shape. So I'd recommend you work on your own roof shape first. So I'm just going to make a really quick roof here. And let's just make just a random shape like this. Okay. And let's just delete this face. So you might get something like this, and this one has a problem, which you'll see in a second. The first thing I want to do is get this onto here. So there's two different ways. What you can do is hold down Shift, click on this one and do Control L and click on Copy Modifiers. And you'll see that's not working. And I'll fix that in a second. Let's go back. And the reason why I'm not going to do that route is because on this main object, when you append it, you also get a big list of attributes, which can be quite useful when you want to really fine tune your roof. So what I would recommend is clicking on the first roof, click on the second one, and then doing Control J. Right then. And then what I'd recommend you do is go to edit mode and just select this mesh, X, delete the vertices. And now what we're left is this roof type. And there's also this bit. This is the gutter. I'm going to move that over here because we can use that in a second. Actually, let's delete that. We can make a fresh one. So we have this roof shape and we can immediately see some problems. So the first thing I'd recommend doing is just looking at your geometry. So this has a problem in which there is an n-gon here and Blender doesn't know what to do with it. There's kind of some strange shading going on. This face is not completely flat. So this must be completely flat. So I'm going to join these two vertices with J. And then we can see here that this looks a lot better. This looks a lot more natural. We can see the two different faces, whereas this one is kind of blending it in because it doesn't know what to do. So again, let's join these faces. Oh, J. There we go. So now if I turn that back on, that will work. And we can now see the roof correctly. So that is the first takeaway that you should get from this, is that all the faces should be completely flat. So I have seen a few people where they've given me a roof and maybe just one of the vertices is just a little bit off. And then you start to get some problems here, because in real life, usually a roof, in most cases, obviously not in all cases, in most cases, the roof is going to be completely flat. So the first thing I'd recommend doing is just going around all your geometry and cleaning it up and making sure that everything is completely flat like that. So you should have nice, clean geometry. If you go here, for example, and just move something over like that, and you see something like this, then that's something to be fixed. So let's just undo that right then. So let's turn that back on. And another problem I also saw a couple of times is that you might have some overlapping vertices. So let's go into edit mode. Let's subdivide that one. Let's bring that over there like that. So now there are two vertices sitting on top of each other. And let's turn this back on. And we're going to start to see a little bit of bugs going on in this corner. So over here, there's no bugs, it's nice and clean. Whereas over here, there are some bugs. So to fix that, you want to make sure that these vertices are all merged. So I'd recommend just doing A, merge by M, merge by distance, and that will remove all vertices if there are any overlapping, and that should help that. Because in some extreme cases, even if one is just slightly off, like that, it's going to completely break it because Blender doesn't know what to do with it. That's some strange geometry. So it's easier just to make sure that everything is nice and clean. So let's just undo that. Right then. So that was most of the bugs that I saw in which the geometry is just all over the place and not working. Another use case in which the geometry is all over the place is when users click this button. So we can see that is a little bit wild. And that's because instead of organizing the tiles nice and straight, according to how it believes the geometry should look in real life, it's actually going to be using the UVs of the object, which is really good in some cases, because in this case, if I turn that back off, we can see here that the tiles here, they're kind of going flat, but maybe you want them to go this way, in which case using the UV map could be a good option. So I'm going to turn that back on, and it's gone all over the place. So I'm just going to press Tab, press A to select everything, press U, Smart UV Unwrap, and click Unwrap. Okay, so this is now all unwrapped. So I'm going to turn that back on, and we can see that these faces are just not looking the right direction. So let's click on these two faces that we want. I'm going to press A, R, rotate 90 degrees, and they are now going the right way. They might be going incorrectly. Let's say rotate 180 degrees. We can see they're now going backwards. So let's rotate those 180 degrees. And if you do want to use this method, it will require a little bit of cleanup, but ultimately it gives you more fine tuning. Let's rotate these minus 90 degrees. Sorry, rotate the 180. There we go. Okay, this one is causing a little bit of problems. So what I'm simply going to do is select this face. I'm just going to unwrap that one on its own. And sometimes that seems to fix it. So let's rotate that into position. And there we go. Let's check that's going the right way. That is not. So let's rotate that 180 degrees. And there we go. So that's now going how I want it to. And again, I'm just going to unwrap that on its own. Because sometimes the island that was originally unwrapped, for some reason it just doesn't work. But unwrapping it on its own allows it to be unwrapped more accurately just to that single face. So now I can rotate that as well how I want it to. Okay, so now we have that face. So now we have the faces that we like. And also my viewport is maybe too low. Let's just, the clipping was making it go look a bit janky. So there we go. So now we have these roof shapes, but I do recommend just leaving that off. In most cases, it does work quite well, but if you do need to fine tune that, you can. And I have seen some people give me something where they've got that selected and the geometry is just all over the place. So I'd recommend just unwrapping everything correctly. Okay, so we can see here that for some reason the Boolean hasn't worked, and that can happen sometimes. The Boolean is not always 100% accurate inside of Blender. So one of the best ways to fix that is just simply to shift everything just ever so slightly off. And usually that will fix it. If you get some persistent ones that are just, no matter what you do, it's just not working. It can happen a lot when there's a more complicated geometry for the tiles, in which case I would just give an additional tile subdivision, and that gives more room for the Boolean to calculate where it should be cutting, and that usually will fix a lot of things. So yeah, from here we can shift all the tiles over if we wanted to. Let's turn this off because it's quite slow. I'd recommend only actually doing that once you have the finished product and you then just want to clean up a few edges, then I'd turn it on. But yeah, we can shift this all over, and also the Y, we can see nothing is really happening. We can kind of see some things slightly changing, but the Y is not moving up. And that's because we have something down here called constant and adaptive. It's always trying to maintain the actual full tile length. However, if I turn that off, and now I can shift this, we can see on the bottom edge there, we don't need to have a full tile. So if you want to shift things up slightly, you can, but adaptive and constant is really, really good, because generally on the bottom and the top, you're always going to have a full tile anyway. So it's easier to just make sure that that all fits. And I just noticed I had this problem. I was trying to think what could possibly be going on wrong here, and it's because I added an additional vertex, didn't I? So I'm just going to merge by distance, and that fixes that edge there. So if anything looks a little bit strange, just try to make sure you don't have additional geometry. I know to realize that from the last update, this now cuts really nicely into the top part. So then we have this roof. Now, how do we add a gutter? So I'm just going to go into edit mode. I'm going to select these vertices here, these edges, sorry, in edge select mode with 2. Oh, sorry. And then I'm going to go down to gutters, And we can see here we have an attribute called add gutters. So let's go to the attributes list. And because we joined the original geometry to the imported geometry, it means we've maintained this list, which makes it a little bit easier. And we can look for add gutters. Click on this one, press F3, type set attribute. Oh, it was just there. There we go. And turn that on. So now we have some gutters. So if I want to make a vertical one, that's also very simple. All I need is any vertex. So I can just right click here, Shift A, add a single vert. If you don't have that add single vert option, you can go to edit preferences, add-ons or extensions, maybe, extra objects. Oops, there we go. Extra mesh objects. There's an update. Okay. And then with that, you can do Shift A, add single vert, and then you can just extrude down like so. Now, how this will actually work for this particular type of geometry, we don't necessarily even need to have add gutters because it is a standalone edge with nothing connecting to it. It's going to assume that this is going to be for a gutter because it's not going to be for any roof geometry. This is a standalone edge. So in that case, it will always be assuming that this bottom edge is for a gutter. And we can see here, we can duplicate this over and it will always try to snap to this edge, which I think is one of my most favorite features. It's so powerful. It's amazing. So the next question is, how do I add my own tiles? So in here, we can see that if I go to tile collection, this is using the collection called tile 6.001. And unfortunately, right now our add-on, if you click append, it's not going to maintain the collections. However, if I go file append and then go to object and then click on this one, we can see it actually imports with all the collections. So that's actually something we're going to be working on right now to make sure that this does the same thing. I believe how it used to be anyway, the appending API for Blender was a little bit funky and it didn't always work as intended. So I don't know if that's a limitation, but I would like for these collections to be imported at the same time. So otherwise, these collections are not here, but it is still referencing the collections here. And this is probably good to know in Blender in general. These collections, they do exist. If I go to Blender file, I can go to collections and we can see they are actually here. They're like it's like a hidden collection. This was like in Blender 2.79 and earlier, I believe that there was like a thing called groups. I can't remember. Gosh, this is a long time ago now, where you could have like a hidden group. But they do exist. So if I go to the Blender file, I can see that collection these collections do actually exist. So this is just good to know in general in Blender. If you do import something which appears to be referencing a collection that doesn't exist, go here and then you can click on this one, right click and click link to scene. I can go back to the view layer and then I can see that collection now exists. So we don't necessarily need this collection right now because I'm going to make my own tile. So let's just delete that tile and I'm going to make one with you guys. So let's just go here. I'm going to add a mesh, just a cube. And I'm going to move that to its own new collection called tile new. There we go. And we can just make a new one. So I'm going to go to front view, scale that on the Z axis, and we can see something like that. So let's leave that as it is. And let's bring this over here. So your customer has sent you a tile which they like, and you are at this stage. So let's go to tile collection. I'm going to type in tile new, and we can see that has now imported. However, it's all overlapping because generally most tiles do have some sort of rotation. So I'm going to click on this one. I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to do R, rotate on the X axis, and we can see it all jump outside. So there we go. Something like this. So we have some beautiful tiles. If I was to scale this, we can see the tiles get bigger and smaller, but the overlap is not quite in the right place. The overlap is like halfway down the tile, and that's referring to the origin point here. So if I was to bring this over on the y-axis, so if I bring this over like this, we can see the tile getting longer and longer, but there's now some gaps. I actually have the adaptive turned on right now, so that's why it looks like it's snapping to the size. Let's turn this off so it make it a bit easier to see. So bring this on the y-axis, we can see that determines the overlap of the tiles based on the origin point. So if I actually do want there still to be some geometry, let's just bring this over. I'll make the tiles a bit longer. Then I could just rotate them like this. And we can see they're kind of sunk into the roof. I can go into edit mode bring this up on the Z axis to bring them out, or I can use the additional height option here if I wanted to. But this tile is very large, so let's just scale this down. We can see that there's a huge gap, so you just simply need to make sure that the origin point is kind of on the geometry and bring that up. And there we go. I can scale this down and then do Control A and apply the scale, and that also works like that. And now you can see the tiles are nice looking on the roof. So that's really easy to make the tiles. I can also duplicate this then. I can then make a variation of that one. There we go. So now it's just going to randomize all the tiles that are within this collection. So you can add as many different variations of the same tile as you like. And then it's just going to randomize through all those. And that actually looks pretty cool. I quite like that actually. Okay, and I just had a crash. So I wanted to talk about the metal panels. So I'm going to talk about them now. And I've just noticed that this tile is not right. So like I said, let's just shift this off slightly. There we go. So just shifting the offset ever so slightly can fix sometimes some small bugs. So let's talk about the metal panel now. And I'm going to use the same roof. And this is a good opportunity again to discuss how to add any type of roof to your original geometry. So let's remove this modifier here. I'm going to go to the iMesh tab and let's append this one in. Okay, so we have our original geometry. I'm going to click on this one. I can do Control L, copy modifiers, or I can do, which I think is the better method, Control J, and then you can maintain the attributes list. Go to edit mode and just select all of this and delete those. So now we have the roof shape that we like. So how does this work? I'm just going to go in a bit more detail how you can create your own panel profiles. So these are the profiles being used here, but let's create our own. Right then, so let's create our own profile. So I'm going to go to top view, and then I'm just going to do a shift right click, shift A. I'm going to add a mesh, add single vert, add single vert. So I'm going to press 1, make sure I'm vertex select, and I can just make any profile I like. Right then, I can then do Control A and then add some bevel to these if I wanted to. Sorry, my screencast keys are not turned on again because it just crashed. And then do Control Shift B, just add some bevel to these. Right, so we've got a nice new profile, and I'm going to move this to a new collection called Strange Profile. Ooh, that's a strange name as well. Right then, I can go to this roof generator, and so if I click this, we can see that's now made a new profile called Strange Profile. And from here, I can then choose that from here, Strange Profile as the profile collection. And we can see it's kind of moved upwards, but nothing is really there. And that's because this is still an object, a mesh object and not a curve. So I'm going to right click, convert to curve. Now we have the beautiful geometry there. So I can make multiple types. So let's bring this down, go to edit mode. I can then select all of these, delete vertex. And now that's going to be, let's duplicate this one. So it's going to be, let's try to make this a bit easier to see. So we can see it's cycling through. So it's going to be this one with the bump, the flat one, and then the strange one. The bump, flat, strange. And it's going to cycle through all of those. So as long as they are all within that collection that I identified over here, profile collection, then it's just going to cycle through those. So that's basically how you get these to work. Basically it has to be a curve. And also with these nice profiles, if you select the edge faces and press F, it will also try to create this edge face for you as well with the panels going down the side, which can actually be quite a nice touch. In some cases you might need that to happen, and that does just happen automatically, which is really nice. Now, in the previous video, I mentioned that the resolution was actually for helping with the Boolean, but that this was actually made for helping with the shading. So if you get some strange shading, you can add some extra detail to the curves to make sure the shading's a bit nicer. But I think that is probably it for getting going. I hope that means that people can now grab this tool, jump in and add it to any roof that you like. Just make sure that all the faces are flat, there's no overlapping vertices, and then it should just work quite nicely. If your tiles are not going the direction that you like, you can just press UV, go to edit mode, U, smart UV unwrap, and or select the face that you like and unwrap each one individually, because sometimes smart UV unwrap doesn't always work as planned, because it basically depends on the angle of the roof as well. So we can see that that is now going sideways, and we can then adjust that in edit we can now adjust that in the UV editor if we wanted to. So this is quite nice actually, a 45-degree angle roof. Not seen that before, but why not? And of course, please do ask the questions on Discord under the help channel with the tag roof generator. And then if other people have the same problem, they can see the solution by looking at your problem there as well, which is going to be super helpful. If you do have any suggestions for this roof generator, please do also put that in the same place and we can try to jump onto that. I'm already seeing people using this roof generator on real renders and it's looking incredible. The detail that it gives to the project is just incredible. And yeah, if you are subscribed, we are constantly updating these. So you will see update every time we've updated this tool. So you'll always keep a fresh version. And please do check out iMesh, of course. $17, probably best investment you'll make all year. And please do join the Discord group with any renders, any questions that you have, because they're an amazing community. And I do think ArcViz is for everyone, and everyone is just so willing to help. Right then, and thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys soon.